Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me in another video. So today I thought we'd talk about this. This was a story that came up on my feed and I think it's a really relevant topic today. I know some of you guys really like The Row. This isn't exclusive to The Row with this current influx of fakes made available on platforms like TikTok and even just in YouTube comments. A lot of these companies are trying to spam consumers and spam watchers of these types of videos. But I saw this story from CNN titled, "She spent $2,600 on a designer bag from a trusted store. Was it fake?" So this is a story by Katie Tritricorn. So I thought this was a really interesting story, and because it involves The Row, I was very curious. The article details the story of a TikTok creator, Joan Kim, who uploaded a video December 2024, so around the holiday period, expressing her, quote, frustration at being scammed by US luxury department store chain Saks Fifth Avenue. "It's the holidays and I wanted to buy a gift. Priced at $2,600, it was a tote by The Row." So in the TikTok, she talks about her love for the Park tote, which she already has in this ivory color, and she's enjoyed this bag so much. It was a bag that she purchased directly from The Row, and she thought she wanted to get this in a bigger size and in the color black. But in the TikTok, she details when getting this bag from Saks, it was very suspicious. So she first talks about the dust bag, how it didn't look right, the material was different from her previous purchase, the drawstring of the dust bag was off the logo, the stitching, everything just did not look right. And she compares this to her bag that she purchased from the Melrose Place boutique. But she purchased this bag from Saks as it is a reputable company. Saks Global not only owns Saks Fifth Avenue, but Bergdorf Goodman and Neiman Marcus. And these, I think, are the pinnacle luxury stores. They sell some of the most prestigious luxury brands. It's not a place where you would hope to ever encounter a fake. She talks in the TikTok how she contacted customer service. From the article, it states, "Kim wasn't satisfied with her response. Her concern," she explained, "was that she would have no physical evidence to prove her claim." She's talking about just sending back the bag, and that she consequently wouldn't receive a refund if she wasn't believed. So she's arguing with these representatives that this is a fake bag, and they're saying, well, how can we trust that you are actually sending us the authentic bag? She also talks about how she was on the phone with Saks for 3 hours. She felt like they barely helped her. She talked to 3 different representatives. She asked to speak to a supervisor. Doesn't sound like a very pleasant experience. But she said she did not want to return the bag using an online method because she also feared that this bag could potentially be resold to another customer that wouldn't know the difference, that didn't have the original, do a side-by-side comparison. One thing I will say about me, just personally, it has become a habit, also because I have a YouTube channel, but I always film my unboxings just to make sure everything is legit, but instead decides to go to the Saks store in person, to the Beverly Hills store, and she received a refund, but in a gift card form. And to me, that is like, really, is that how they would choose to do things? To me, I feel like they should be able to guarantee authenticity or full refund. Like, I just feel like that should be like a base level thing. But according to CNN, when they contacted them about the incident, Saks stated that the issue had been resolved, but they did not confirm whether the bag returned was a counterfeit or what they did with it. Of course, we talked about a very, very similar situation that happened with a customer at Essence. They had purchased a bag from Essence, the Row 90s. And in that video, we talked about the Row 90s bag, and there was another bag from like a more indie brand. But with the Row situation in particular, she was able to get a refund, as well as they gave her like a 10% discount on her next purchase. It's good that she got her money back. I actually felt like they could have done something more, I don't know, but I just feel like the fact that she's spent 3 hours of her time during the holidays, this is not how you want to spend your time during the holidays, right? And then you also have to take time out of your day to go to like return a bag in store. It just doesn't sound like a nice experience. And I can imagine with an experience like this, of course we have a few instances that are reported online, but you know, I think about how many instances this has probably happened to people that aren't on TikTok, right? And of course this was during the holidays. Imagine buying a gift for somebody and then you not realizing it was a fake bag, or like maybe you asked for this specific gift from somebody and you asked for like the park tote and it turns out to be fake. Like that is such an unenjoyable experience. From a company like Saks, it's very disappointing to see. Now, one thing that I think is very unclear with this story is I would have thought like, you know, during the holidays, there would have been some kind of like generous return policy, not just like a store credit. You would be able to get your money back. So this is where I guess I just have a little bit more questions. Maybe she bought the bag early on and then wanted to unbox this bag for herself for Christmas or something like that. Maybe when she realized it was too late or it was outside of the return policy. I don't know. That is very unclear to me. But if there's any discrepancy about authenticity, it's like you should get your money back. Now, CNN, they contacted Saks and they said that their fulfillment centers manage millions of shipments every year. Of course, Saks, as well as like Neiman Marcus, Bergdorf Goodman, etc. These are the largest luxury department stores. It is realistically very believable that out of the millions of shipments every year, there are returns like this that would slip through the cracks. But I remember talking about this previously, how the business of fashion reported how returns fraud has gone up by 400% since the pandemic from 2020 to now. Of course, more and more people since the pandemic have relied on the convenience of buying online. Like it's so much easier just to buy something online, not have to go into like a physical store, and then you get the bag or you get whatever you want, right? CNN also reached out to Essence. They stated how their returns undergo a thorough examination. But of course, with these online platforms that sell like several hundreds of brands, it is believable that through like the multiples of returns that probably also happened during the holiday season, something like this would fall through the cracks. Of course, when looking at the footage, seeing the dust bag, how flimsy the leather is, the cheap lining versus the authentic park tote, which has a beautiful suede lining, the way the leather smells and feels, like the touch, you can tell all of these things in person. And especially for the creator who has already had the original style. Can also imagine training employees to be able to authenticate products at this mass scale where fakes and replicas have become even more sophisticated and prevalent. The article also mentions how flannels for years has been accused of selling counterfeits from brands like Saint Laurent to Gucci. In 2018, the Italian label Moncler confirmed that some of the purchases made from flannels were actually not genuine. And of course, none of these department stores, these multi-brand platforms, no one intends to sell fakes. I honestly think that all of these companies would never intentionally do this, but it is more important than ever that these companies have greater safety measures in place to ensure this does not happen. And then the article also mentions how processing returns is a complicated and costly process, and it is possible that some stores may not have the infrastructure in place to thoroughly inspect the returned items. It's rare, but the impact is substantial. And again, we live in this era of social media where a post like this will gain millions of views. These types of TikToks, they go viral. I'm sure there's a bunch of reasons why that is. I think there is sort of this outrage right now from many different sides, this outrage against like luxury brands in general. This just adds more fuel to the fire. And it's very important that these brands, these multi-brand outlets, be it online or department stores, they maintain their integrity and their image. The article talks about how more luxury brands are choosing to have greater control of their image by choosing to limit which distributors and stores can actually sell their products. They specifically cite how Chanel does not sell their bags online, it's only in store. And of course, Hermes sells their exclusive quota bags in store. Online, you can pick up their bags, but it is still exclusively through their own channel. But we've already seen the Row take more measures. The Margot bag, for instance, it's not available through these multi-brand online retailers or stores. You have to buy it directly through them. They also have several products I've noticed on their website that you can only buy from them directly, be it through their website, or you have to like exclusively buy that product in person. Usually more of like the higher tier items. I will say for myself, I feel personally a lot more confident buying the Row in person in that I can like try on the bag, feel it, touch it, or just directly from the Row. I will also say though, I do feel confident as somebody that has been following the brand for some time. I don't want to say I can fully authenticate the row. I don't feel like I'm at the level where I could be a professional authenticator of the row, but I can see when influencers are carrying fake versions of the Margot, even if they have the logo. Like, it's very obvious to me. But I think it is very sad though, because when I think about the Park Tote or the 90s bags, these are great bags. Like, these are some, I think, really great. Like, if you're looking to get into the brand, these are very popular bags for good reason. But because of that, it would be easier to dupe that consumer who's buying like the Row 90s because it's their first bag that they want to purchase from the Row. This isn't just limited to the Row, as the article mentions. At the store, Flannels, Gucci, Saint Laurent, and Montclair have faced this issue. And again, these are brands that haven't positioned themselves in a way to be as exclusive as a Chanel or Hermes, or even I would say some LVMH brands that only sell their bags through their specific physical stores or online directly, like be it Louis Vuitton, Dior, Celine, Fendi. You pretty much have to go through the brands directly. LVMH does sell their own brands at Le Bon Marché, but that's also a department store owned by LVMH. Not all brands, I know, like Loewe, Givenchy. You can find those types of bags through multi-brand retailers. A lot of Kering brands as well. Gucci, Saint Laurent sell a lot of their products this way. But I think right now there is this crisis in luxury with this whole rise of made in China replicas and its heavy presence and promotion on TikTok. This is a problem that's only going to get worse unless these multi-brand retailers take this problem very seriously. Also, just semi-related, I was reading the story from the New York Times by journalist Alim Karaj, and he details his experience buying dupes, and he talks about how it just started with one bag and then he kept buying and buying and buying them. And it was sort of like this thrill of the chase, being able to buy something that looked real and finding the best price for the most authentic look. And because these bags weren't terribly expensive, like they were still up there, but it was like very accessible, right? Versus some of the bags that he mentioned, like the Bottega Veneta Andiamo or getting like a fake Hermes Birkin. You know, those bags aren't easily accessible, but there are dupes and replicas at all different levels, at all different price points. But he talks about how the TikTok algorithm had led him down this rabbit hole of just admiring handbags and thinking the world of handbags was fascinating, to this world of dupes and Chinese e-commerce sites. And with the rise of TikTok, a lot of consumers have become very vulnerable to the dupe marketing. Like, even just having this YouTube channel, you get these annoying bots that make these claims about how it's better to buy dupes and only rich people buy dupes. And you hear these kinds of sentiments, but it's very interesting to hear his perspective because he at the time felt like he was outsmarting the system, sticking it to the system by buying these dupes or replicas. But in the article, he also talks about how he was skimping out on grocery shopping, or he put off going to the dentist, or he was avoiding social situations where he may have to spend money because he would rather buy dupes. And he was quite obsessive about it, so much so that he went into debt just trying to chase these dupes. And then he talks about how he quit TikTok and the apps for these Chinese marketplaces because it was just taking over his life. But in the article, he states, quote, "I began to see this for all it was, a symbiotic network of influencers, social media, e-commerce platforms, and digital advertising, all designed to capitalize on my inability to regulate myself." And I think there's just something about being able to have a bag so instantly at a much more accessible price. It's very interesting how in the article he talks about how it was something he was doing as a way to stick it to the system, yet he became so entrenched in the system. The thing that I think about luxury bags and what's very interesting to me is usually, not always, but usually it's, I think for a lot of people, something that you may think about, you may have to inquire about, save up for. You will have to go into a physical luxury store. You're going to want to try it on, see the proportions. How is the strap length? How is the handle length? Do you like the texture, the color? Sometimes the online colors are never the same in person. How is the hardware, the leather, the feel of the leather? It's quite, I would say, a sensory experience when you buy a luxury bag, like it can be. For a lot of people, when buying luxury, there is a level of consideration that goes into a luxury purchase, whether it be the aesthetics of the bag, the functionality of the bag, how that bag fits into their life, right? Whereas the thing about dupes and replicas, you don't have that same kind of experience. And to the creator of the TikTok, Joan Kim, who purchased the Row Tote, it was so obvious to her that this was a replica bag based on the leather, the way it draped, the smell, the touch, the lining, feel of the suede suede lining versus the lack of lining with the dupe. Sure, you could get the aesthetic, which could look cool on Instagram if you wanted to have the aesthetic, and that's what dupes provide, to have the aesthetic, and sometimes that's enough, right? But I don't know, maybe I'm just like brainwashed into this. We know for real these bags are not worth the production. Of course, we've already heard stories about Dior bags recently as well, Valentino bags. So I don't think that's like across the board, but I will say, like, just also having a YouTube channel and engaging with a lot of you guys, it does make me fear that more consumers are going to get scammed. It is going to hurt these retailers. It's so frustrating to me that like people would do this, actively buy fake bags and then return them to places like Saks or Flannels or Essence. As somebody that really enjoys a lot of these companies as well, I've never purchased from Flannels, but I purchased from Saks, I've purchased from Essence. Luxury is in a very difficult situation right now, and I think more than ever, it's very important that a lot of these companies maintain really high standards, maintain their reputations, and are vigilant when it comes to fake bags, because anyone can get on TikTok now and these kinds of stories blow up. That's my video for today. Thank you so much for joining me in another one, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!